California MBA DE&I Podcast. I'm your host, Ty Christensen, president and co-founder for Arrive Home. Arrive Home is a national affordable housing program that aims to increase home ownership within low to moderate income individuals and underserved communities throughout our country. Thank you so much for joining us today. As always, I would like to thank our sponsor, PCB Mercor, which is a nationwide real estate valuations management company. We appreciate your continued sponsorship of this podcast. Today, my guest is Aneeza Haleem. Aneeza is VP of Technology at Planet Home Lending, where she has worked for almost 4 years. Prior to her time at Planet Home Lending, she worked for a tech firm called Cognizant, where she was for almost 10 years. So Aneeza, welcome.
Hi, Ty. So happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm thrilled you're here because you've got a really unique perspective of being a female in the tech industry, which, as we all know, is not very common. So kind of start by walking us through your introduction to tech, how you got into the mortgage industry, and then your positions you held.
Sure. So introduction into technology was not very glamorous. It was a fairly typical work stream that most folks, most Indian kids went into, right? Your choices were engineering or going into medicine. I'm deathly afraid of blood, so my option was always going to be on the technology side. Thank God I was good with that. So once I started working, it was a complete coincidence being assigned to a banking and financial services industry client. They had a really small mortgage project that was, still pretty early stages and all. That was my first project. Once I started, I knew I would never leave. Just buying a house is such a special event, and to be part of designing that experience and creating that memory, that's what inspires me. So once I started, I knew I was hooked.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, how is it being a female in this very male-dominant field?
It's gotten a lot better. Let me say that first. But at first, so I've been in this space for almost 20 years now. So let's say about 20 years ago when I first started, it was quite rare to see women in technology. Even on the business side, you didn't see as many women in, say, sales and more glamorous side. You saw more women in the back office operations, that side, right? And similarly on the technology side, typically women would have project management or the organizer type of roles, right? So getting recognized as a developer, being taken seriously as, having true technical knowledge, that was a little hard at first, but it's gotten a lot better. There are more of us now, more in the middle management and senior management positions who can now kind of set up for the newer generation to come in. So difficult at first, but it's been a lot better. It's gotten a lot.
Well, how do you feel that we can encourage more women and people of color to come into this specific space and get more comfortable with tech as women of color and people of color just in general?
So it's a multi-layered approach here. Like for the people who are already in the workforce, as leaders, it's our responsibility to create an environment that allows them to truly thrive. Right? It could be something as simple as maybe flexible hours is what they need. But on a larger scale for these folks, how do you create an environment in which they are not afraid to fail? Right? We're always under the microscope, right? At least my generation coming up, we're representative of all women. So it's that chip on the shoulder of, if I mess up, I'm messing up for the entire gender, right? There's that weight there. So how do you create an environment in which they feel safe, right? Give them that space, the opportunity to take a risk, right? So for folks in the workforce, it's all about setting up these kind of safe spaces. For kids in high school, college, how do you show them that technology is a viable career for a woman, for a person of color? So whether it's something like creating internships where they can see you in action, whether it's giving back to the community as maybe training, or just putting yourself out there as, if I can do it, I'm sure you can at least try. And the biggest block, I think, where we really need to focus is kids in elementary school and middle school, right? They don't know yet that maybe this isn't the right space, right? So how do we guide them towards, it's not about forcing them into technology, but it's about showing them that technology isn't that difficult. Their lives are already almost fully integrated. Technology is everywhere for them. So for them to pick it up as maybe coding is just me thinking out the steps. Maybe it is simple logic that goes behind it. It's not as scary as one may imagine. So how do we set them up to then see this as a viable option as they get older?
Yeah. I love what you say about giving ourselves permission to fail, specifically in a professional setting, right? I mean, I know for myself, I'm a Black woman, obviously, and there are not a lot of Black women in the mortgage industry, period, right? It's a very small group when you take all of the professionals in the mortgage space, very small group of us are Black women. And to your point, sometimes you do feel that weight on your shoulder, like, oh, if I screw up, I may have taken this opportunity away from another Black woman or another person of color because maybe I've done something that has really offended someone, right? And we always kind of have that fear kind of shrouding us, but giving ourselves opportunities to fail, saying, you know what, oh, well, I'm going to try my best and do it again, and still moving forward on the path that we're on. I think that does model to young people, specifically young people that look like us, like, well, she made a mistake. She's still hanging in there. Maybe I can do it too.
Exactly. It's for us as well. Just maybe we don't need to be as anxious as we are, right? Maybe it's okay to mess up. Maybe it's okay just to be, right? But it's giving us that space, and by extension, allowing our teams that space as well.
Indeed, giving ourselves grace, and then because we're so quick to give others grace, we're so quick to say, it's okay, you can try again, I'm proud of you, do it again. But then for some reason, when it comes to ourselves, we want ourselves to be perfect all the time. Not realistic. Not realistic at all. Well, tell me what you're excited about in mortgage tech right now, or maybe things that are coming up in the future.
So AI for sure, everyone's talking about it. For me though, I love the fact that AI is such a popular topic, because it makes conversations about technology with business so much simpler. They're already open to the idea. They're familiar with some of the words and stuff. I do think that many of us on the technology and the sales side especially throw out the word AI a lot looser than we should. There are no rules in advertising, so you can't really hold them at fault. But at least the fact that it's being talked about makes it simpler for us to have conversations where technology doesn't seem so scary, where businesses are like, well, you know what? I used ChatGPT to write a story about unicorns yesterday, so maybe I can trust my technology team to help me out with my LOS issues, right? It's not as much of a black box. So I love the fact that people are talking about technology and embracing it as, as much or as little, but at least being open to the idea of technology being part of our lives now. As an extent, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, please keep going.
As an extension to it, I think the conversations around data privacy are critical to us, especially us in the origination space, in the origination servicing space, because as an originator, so say me as a user, when I go to an originator, I'm pretty much handing you my entire life. Yeah. I am giving you every little bit of information that describes me, but I'm also giving you a lot of information that you really don't need. So, for example, when I give you my tax forms, I'm also including my kids' social security numbers. You don't really need that, but it's there.
Right.
I'm trusting you to take care of that. Or say I submit a corporate tax return. I might be including my business partner's information in that as well. He or she may not be involved in this transaction, but now you have his data as well. And I'm expecting you to protect it to your best ability. The more we talk about how we handle these kind of situations, yes, you as the originator, you need proof about what you're underwriting, right? You need to see the document, but do you? Or like how we have a lot of APIs now from banks that give you confirmation on what, like, say, the checking balances or the savings account balances. Can we extend that kind of technology to provide confirmation for all of these pieces of information as well? So you as the originator have faith that the data that I've given you is accurate, which you need for your underwriting. I have peace of mind that you only have the pieces of information that you need. You don't have more, but you have everything that you need. And everybody around me, family, friends, associates, I'm not taking any type of advantage of their information as well. So that security is coming with technology in the process, but it's coming with technology, and I'm excited to see that.
Oh, that is truly exciting because, I've been in the mortgage space for over 20 years, and you're right. You get tax returns sometimes with all kinds of other people's private information on there that you don't need for the transaction. They are just included in the return. And it is the due diligence of the originator to make sure that all that data becomes private and stays private, right? And we've all had leaks, and we've seen the leaks on the news, and it makes consumers nervous, and it's kind of a vicious cycle. So I'm really excited to hear that there is some progression being made as to how to maybe redact some of that information that really isn't necessary for the transaction, and also opens up risk to other parties that didn't ask to be included. Additionally, your point about AI, if we could just circle back to that for a minute, because it's such a hot topic right now. Everybody's talking about it. And a lot of people are nervous that AI is going to bring to fruition the end of their job in whatever capacity that is. And regardless of how many times people say, no, that's not the case, how do we as consumers of AI use it responsibly, but also not fear that it's going to replace us?
A century ago, when industrialization started, that's basically what happened. Are jobs going to be lost? Yes. But will new jobs be created? Also, yes. Will your current job get transformed? Also, yes. The change is inevitable, but it's not going to be a tomorrow thing. It's not even going to be a next year thing. But down the line, it's definitely coming. What can we do now to prepare ourselves for it? Embrace it. There's nothing else you can do. The technology is here, the technology is coming. There's nothing we can do to stop it. If anything, the guardrails need to be put in place to protect us. And I'm not talking Terminator or HAL, I'm not going that far, but guardrails in place to make sure that our information or how AI is used is productive, is conducive for society as we know it today. But beyond that, this is just what happens every 5, 10, 15 years. There's a shift in how things are done. And some industries move a little slower than others, but eventually all industries catch up. With technology, you see it all around us, right? Like we're on Zoom right now. This may not have been there 20, 30 years ago. Or even in our house, our entire homes be controlled from our cell phones, whether it's, the air conditioning or the lights or opening the garage door, tracking my kids if I need to. Like all of this is from this tiny little piece of technology. It's there. It's part of our lives. There's no going back. Am I afraid that my processors or my loan openers are suddenly not going to have a job? No. There is a space for all of these skills. And I think at some point, just that fear of change is what's stopping us. It's not truly fear of AI. It's not HAL coming up. It's just, oh, now maybe I have to change what I got so used to doing.
Yes.
It's not always a bad thing.
It's not always a bad thing. It's interesting that you say that. I was talking to my daughter the other day. She's 11, and I told her, "Oh, I've been alive since before there was an internet." And she was like, "You're older than Google?" Like it just was so shocking to her, And I was thinking, well, I'm not that old, but yes. But to your point, 100 years ago, even going back to 1923, my great grandmother was born in 1918. And for her to see, she died at 102. So for her to see the progression of, horse and carriage, and she was in the South and she rode horses into town, which sounds crazy, to cars and cell phones and the internet. Our lives have changed so drastically over the last 100 years. And the kids today have the benefit of being born and raised with technology. And they don't have the fear of it that some of us older people do, right? So I absolutely love that. Yeah. So we're unfortunately are to the end of our time. This always goes by fast, guys. I'm really sorry. I know I really do try to keep it at 15. But I always end by asking my guest, if you could go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that be?
Slow down. I wanted to change the world when I was a teenager. I was that rebellious, angst-filled kid. I wanted to change the world. But now looking back, even baby steps towards that utopian goal, that's good. That's okay. I don't have to change the entire world to feel okay about this. We're moving in the right direction. We'll get there. And that's okay.
Well, Aneeza, thank you for telling us and reminding us to give ourselves permission to fail, to embrace technology and not be fearful of it, and to slow down and enjoy the journey. I truly appreciate you spending time with us today. I know you're very busy. So thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for watching again. And we will see you next month with another interesting guest. Bye guys.